Hello and welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. We're so glad to have you here today for our virtual meeting. Let's go ahead and get started with Brad Nowlin, therapist with the Fort Worth Counseling and Intervention, followed by the National Anthem by our very own Rotary Vice President, Wesley Gentle, Director of Development with the Arts Council of Fort Worth.
Dear God, as we are in this time of pandemic, loss, and racial strife, let us acknowledge the loss we are all experiencing. And yet let us also remember that darkness is followed by light. As we look forward to the opening of our country and community, help us to show respect for each other, whether we're wearing a mask or not. Help us to celebrate the Colonial, the experience, the sacredness of golf and being outdoors and seeing people outdoors with a sense of joy and optimism. And let us conduct ourselves as good golfers with sportsmanship, dignity, and composure. Amen.
Thank you so much, Brad and Wesley. Next, we have Greg Carter, Managing Director of WRG Herman Miller, to welcome today's visiting Rotarians and guests.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you all for joining today's virtual meeting. We especially want to say welcome if you are a guest or a visiting Rotarian. You have found your way to a pretty special community group in a time where we need communities. If you are visiting, in the chat box, we'd ask you to just put your name and who invited you so that we can reach out to you. And a special welcome, I should say a special welcome back to Mr. Tom Reed of GM Arlington.
Thank you, Greg. And actually, another really special welcome to all of our visitors and guests. We're going to be making an announcement at the end of today's program about when we will be returning to live programs and another announcement, so stay tuned to the end. Also, a special thank you to Steve Kessler of Fidelity, Michelle Krim with Dynamic Development Strategies, and Chris Jordan with Electrical Acoustics, who welcomed everyone in today before we joined the program. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our very own past president, Gary Cumby, president and CEO of the Cumby Consultancy, who will be giving today's very special newscast. Take it away, past President Gary.
Greetings, Rotarians. I hope you're all safe and well. Our week began with Memorial Day. It was especially poignant this year, and many of us found that our circumstances allowed us to focus more clearly on the deep meaning of our tribute to our fallen heroes. And there wasn't a whole lot of non-pandemic news this week. NASA had hoped to return to launching American astronauts from America with a liftoff on Wednesday, but because of weather, that had to be scrubbed. Of course, everything's having to be scrubbed these days. They'll try again tomorrow night. But about this pandemic, it's causing many changes and giving an opportunity for folks to do things for others. My own church adopted a program asking members to start calling older members to be sure they were okay. I thought this was an excellent idea until I started getting a lot of calls to see how I was. There's a lot of disagreement over how to behave during this time. President Trump has been taking criticism for not wearing a mask, but he has a good reason. He says the mask makes his hair look funny. On the other hand, after 8 weeks of self-quarantine, former VP Joe Biden finally came out of his basement on Memorial Day. However, he saw his shadow, so he's back in the basement for another 6 weeks. Mr. Biden is pretty confident of victory. In fact, he's already making plans to move into the White House basement. It's said that he has a short list of potential candidates to be his running mate. In order to be on that list, you have to be a woman, and you get extra consideration for being a minority. That may explain why Elizabeth Warren has begun wearing a headdress, moccasins, and beads. An unnamed staffer says Mr. Biden has already made his selection. However, he can't remember who it is. Let me say that I'm glad I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I believe we are moving responsibly to get things reopened. An editorial in Monday's Wall Street Journal pointed out that in the so-called blue states, their leaders were being much slower to get going. So in solidarity with my brethren and sistren in those blue states, I took the headline from that editorial and turned it into a song. And you get to hear it now. I can't go nowhere because everything is closed. The governor says it every day on his TV shows. We're all in lockdown. It's all over the news. I got the blue state shut down, stay at home quarantine blues. You see, it's in California and Illinois too. New York and New Jersey, every state that is blue. And I don't like it. Man, it's like my fuse. I got the blue state shut down, stay at home quarantine blues. And can you believe you've got to wear a mask in a 7-Eleven store? They used to arrest you if you did that before, but the world's gone crazy, at least from my point of view. I got the blue state shut down, stay at home quarantine blues. And that's not all. You can't go to the barber or to a retail store. The kids can't go to school and I can't take it anymore. But there's 47 places where you can go and buy booze. I got the crazy upside down backwards quarantine blues. Did you hear this? The birth rate's gonna spiral, at least that's what they say. But how's that gonna happen if we stay 6 feet away? It ain't gonna happen. Might as well take a snooze. You got the blue state locked down, no whoopee abstinence blues. Now here's what I'm doing. I'm praying for a vaccine. I'm praying for research. I'd like to pray in public, but I still can't go to church. I guess that's just a problem. Trying to sanitize the pews. I got the blue state shut down. God help me, quarantine blues. Yeah, I'll take hydroxychloroquine. What have I got to lose? I got the blue state shut down. Stay at home quarantine blues. And that's the news.
Wow. Gary, thank you so much for that very highly caffeinated newscast from all those coffee mugs behind you. Glad to see they were put to good use today. Spectacular. Well done. Thank you so much. Hard to transition after that one. So as I mentioned last week, we will be taking some time during each of our meetings to highlight our 2020 grant recipients. This year, our club awarded over $70,000 to community organizations, including 17 from mid-April nomination to present date. So today we are honored to present 3 recipients and to highlight what they're going to be doing with those dollars. So first off, we have past president Wayne Carson, CEO of ACH Children and Family Services. And today we are honored to present to you, Dr. Carson, a check for $5,000. And we'd love to know a little bit more about your organization and what you plan on doing with those funds. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks all Rotarians for supporting us. These dollars went to one of the programs that was the most difficult for us to keep open during COVID. And we did keep it open. It was to support our runaway and homeless youth shelter. We are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we did not close at all during COVID. We've had 34 kids come into care, and these are kids that need help today. They come off the streets, they are brought to us by the police department. They are kids that need a place to stay tonight. So we've had to figure out how to get those kids in, make sure they're safe, make sure they're welcomed, make sure they're fed, and make sure they and our staff are safe. So this $5,000 will go a long ways towards helping us with the additional cleaning supplies, with the staffing, and with all the work that we've done to maintain a safe program during COVID. So thank you very much for that. One other quick notice for all of you. You may have heard in the paper, there are a lot of concerns about child abuse and neglect increasing this summer because so many things are being canceled, and those folks that have eyes and ears on our kids to protect them may not be seeing kids this summer. So I want to make sure everybody knows we have a group of providers. In Fort Worth, we don't just sit around and worry about things, we do something about it. We have a large group of providers that have come together. ACH Cook Children's, the Alliance for Children, Boys and Girls Club, Parenting Center, Lena Pope, DFPS, the police department. And we have a phone number that families can call. So if you see any family that needs counseling, parenting help, any kind of support this summer, have them call ACH, and we have an accurate list of all of these programs of what is available this summer for children and families so that we can help everybody get through this summer safely. So thank you, and appreciate all Rotary does for this community and for ACH.
Thank you, Dr. Carson, and definitely thank you for you and your entire team for everything that you do for our Fort Worth community. We're very fortunate to have you in our community. Thank you. So next we have Dan Schisler, President and CEO, along with Jordan Wright, Director of Development with the Union Gospel Mission of Tarrant County. Today, we are honored to present to you and your team a check for $5,000. Dawn and Jordan, will you please share a little bit more about your organization and what you plan on doing with those funds?
I want to say, we really missed everybody there. They used to come volunteer on Monday nights, and really miss everybody. Jordan Wright's our development director, and she wrote this grant, and our vision was to keep everything going, with our children and family and people that we serve the same as always. And she's going to speak to the grant.
Yes. On behalf of the mission and all of the children and families that we serve, we just want to say thank you for your generosity and for this $5,000 grant. This grant is going towards our Children's Enrichment Program. And the goal of our program is to really deal with all of the developmental traumas that children experience when they've gone through homelessness and instability. So we address their needs, we focus on their education, try and get them back up to grade level, if not above their grade level, and just try and enhance their lives as best we can. And overall, we want to give them the tools that they need to be successful, not just while they're here, but tools that they can take with them and be successful after their time at the mission. So this grant that you've awarded us is going to go towards furthering our efforts in enriching the lives of the children that we serve. So thank you so much from us, and thank you for all the work that you all do in our community.
Thank you both so much. We truly appreciate, again, you being in our community. And lastly, we have Vicki Niedermeyer, CEO of Helping Restore Ability. And today we're pleased to present to you a check for $5,000. Vicki, will you please share with us a little bit about your organization and what you plan to do with those funds?
I'm happy to do that. Thank you so much for your support. Helping Restore Ability provides in-home care for low-income Texans that their physicians have documented are at risk of perhaps going into an institution like a nursing home or a assisted living facility or a hospital if we are not able to provide the in-home care that they need. And we help with everything from bathing, dressing, cooking, cleaning, grooming, all of those kinds of activities of daily living that our clients need. And if they didn't have that in-home care, they would be at risk of being hospitalized or put in a facility. And as you all have heard, the last place that someone, especially that has a long-term health condition and is perhaps immunocompromised, needs to be is in a facility where they're even more at risk. And so your dollars have helped us to afford the additional protective equipment that we have to give to our caregivers who are leaving the safety of their homes and going into the homes of our clients who cannot get out into the community and are needing support to stay in their homes and safe there. And so, you know, we as a home health care agency, we budget for those kinds of expenses routinely. But of course, with COVID, we have had to really expend a lot more effort and training and investment in protective equipment, masks, gloves, hand sanitizers. We at this point have expended about $75,000 in additional expenses above and beyond what we typically have to equip our healthcare heroes, which is what they are, going into other people's homes and keeping them safe. So we are so grateful for your support. We are especially grateful for you during this time of the pandemic and the ongoing work that you do in supporting the nonprofit sector, especially in our community.
Thank you, Vicki. And again, thank you to Wayne, Dawn, Jordan, and Vicki for being with us today and sharing about what you're doing in the community, not only during COVID, but also beyond COVID as well. Thank you all for being here today. Next up, we have 50 things every Rotarian should know on that same topic. We have the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Endowment Fund began in 1918 at the Rotary Club of Kansas City. A decade later, the Rotary Foundation was formally established at the 1928 Minneapolis Convention. Since that time, the Rotary Foundation has received over $85 million each year for educational and humanitarian work around the world. This is an amazing thing to see what one person started and truly living service above self. As always, if you're interested in knowing more about the Rotary Foundation's beginning, please be sure and check out this week's Rotograph for a full explanation. Next up, we have Secretary Christy Eckler, Vice President, Advancement with the Botanical Research Institute of Texas, AKA the Brit, with a second reading. Christy, please take it away.
So just a reminder, as we get Christy unmuted, we will do a poll. So after Christy introduces and Rachel calls for a vote in a second, we'll have a poll to accept this member.
Sorry about that. I didn't unmute myself. Okay, we have one second reading today. The following proposed new member was submitted in the May 15th, 2020 program, and no written objections have been received. If no objections are made after reading their name, then the proposed member will be accepted into our club. We'll be using the voting poll now.
So you have moved to election.
Bob Byers, my apologies. Bob Byers, the name is Bob Byers, proposed by Fernando Costa, classification municipal government, Fort Worth Botanic Garden. I move their election to be subject to attending Rotary information.
Second.
Great, I have a motion. There is a second. Thank you so much, Bob Mitchell. All active members of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth, please place your vote at this time.
We'll give you 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
The yeses have it. And Bob, welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. We look forward to seeing you often. Next up, we have our member spotlight segment. Every week we take a couple of minutes to learn a little bit more about our Rotary members. This week we have Mary Barclay, partner with Canty Hanger, who has been a member since 2016.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I've been a partner at Canty Hanger and been working there 13 years in downtown Fort Worth. And I got involved in Rotary because my family has been involved in Rotary for many years. And in fact, both of my grandparents were members of this club, Charlie Gum and Calvin Hazelwood, back in the day. I really enjoy this club because of the diversity of the presentations and the involvement directly here in the Fort Worth community, just like was highlighted with the grants that were provided today. I'm also a member of the board of directors for CASA of Tarrant County, another organization that helps children in need. And this is something that you all have probably, again, been reading about in the news. And some funny things about me, I am a full-time lawyer, but have suddenly found myself to be a also full-time virtual teacher. And I am happy to say that virtual school for my elementary school age children is now over for the summer. So yay for that. And thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary. It was great to know a little bit more about you. Next, we have Maddie Peterson-Compton, a retired attorney with the U.S. Department of Justice. And Maddie has been a member since 2003.
Good afternoon. I joined Rotary in December 2003 at the suggestion of the late, great Irma Johnson Hadley. Irma said that Rotary would be a place where I would meet a lot of interesting people and that all of those people would be doing the same kinds of things that I do, which is serve my community. And that has been true, and that has been evidenced by the grants that were given today, but also the other things that are done to ensure that our children can read, and lots of other areas that Rotary invest its time. When I'm not at Rotary, my girlfriend calls me Maddie Compton Board Woman because I'm probably at a board meeting somewhere, even online. Before I joined, before coronavirus hit us, my greatest extravagance was buying art, but now I spend my time looking at art online and touring museums in that way. The saddest part about COVID for me has been not getting to see my mother. She's 103 and she's in a rehabilitation facility, but now I get to visit her through the window. Thank you for inviting me today.
Maddie, it was a pleasure knowing a little bit more about you, and I love those glasses. Next and lastly, we have Steve Pegler, Vice President with the Whitney Smith Company, who's been a member since 2011. Steve, take it away.
Thanks, Rachel. Happy to be here. Thanks for asking me to do this today. Yes, my name is Steve Pegler. I'm a Senior Vice President with the Whitney Smith Company. We're a human resources consulting firm based in downtown Fort Worth, and I've worked there since 1998. I've been a member of Rotary since 2011. And when I joined, actually prior to joining, I had colleagues and friends who had been Rotary members prior to that, and I was well aware of what a fantastic organization Rotary was and is. And so I finally joined, and been very happy that I did that. When not at Rotary, where can you find me? I'm an amateur musician. It's just a hobby, certainly not a profession. I've played in local bands for years, but not too many gigs happening right now in the time of COVID. So you might find me in my home studio doing recording. How's this new world affected my life? Well, stuck at home most of the time, with a wife, 2 bored college kids whose college has shut down, obviously, and 3 cats and 2 dogs. So it gets a little too cozy sometimes. But thanks for inviting me today. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Steve. And again, a special thank you to Mary, Maddie, and Steve for sharing a little bit more about yourselves, and thank you for being Rotary members. Next, we have a very exciting announcement. These are 4 individuals of many that we're going to be recognizing moving forward. And today, we are recognizing Dr. Joe Michaels for 18 years of perfect attendance. We have Sylvia Mahoney for 25 years of perfect attendance. We have Catherine Bryant for 31 years of perfect attendance. And lastly, Dr. Judith Carrier, past president and our first women president, for 33 years of perfect attendance. Thank you so much for being part of Rotary and your commitment to everything that Rotary stands for. You are definitely the foundation of this organization, and we're so glad to have you in our club today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your perfect attendance. A pin that is shown in that slide will be sent to each of you that you'll be able to wear proudly virtually and in person. Thank you again for being here and for your perfect attendance. Next up, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Doug Jones to introduce today's speaker. Doug is Vice President of Charles Schwab and Company. Doug, take it away.
Thank you, Rachel. I think video issues are among me right now, but anyways, these are certainly different times. I know many of us are ready to get back to normalcy here soon. Today, we're certainly heading that direction with the Charles Schwab Challenge coming up as the first post-coronavirus PGA golf event to be hosted since the Players Tournament concluded in March. Although it will be a spectatorless tournament, I know a lot of golf fans across the country, and especially here in Fort Worth, will be there in spirit. We're also excited to have what is expected to be the best player field in Colonial Country Club history. I also know many will always be known as the Colonial, and I certainly won't try to change that. However, as the name was changed last year to the Charles Schwab Challenge, we still very much appreciate the heritage and honor that comes with sponsoring such a classic match. It's certainly clear the investment Schwab has made here in Texas, especially in Fort Worth, with the brand new Schwab campus in Westlake, the relocation of their corporate headquarters to be held there as well, and the continued investment in branch locations across the region. To Chuck himself, it was just made perfectly sense for him to invest in this tournament and sponsor it. We are privileged to work alongside with many of great folks at the Colonial Country Club to put this together. Today, we're even more fortunate to have a gentleman that has been dedicating his time relentlessly to make this happen and set the benchmark for the rest of the PGA events going forward. I'm sure this has not been an easy task, and he has even stated to ESPN that it's been very scary and sometimes daunting because they want to make sure this is done right. With us today is Michael Tothe, the tournament director of Charles Schwab Challenge. Hailing from Ontario, Canada originally, his debut in the golfing community here in the U.S. started when he played golf at Shorter College in Rome, Georgia. While playing collegiate level, he also interned with American Junior Golf Association, where he later joined as full-time staff tournament director. He became part of the Colonial community in 2008 as director of sales, and since 2011 has been the tournament director. Please welcome me in having Michael Tothe join us here today. Thank you.
Everybody hear me? Hey, everyone. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I've got the club in the background here. Let's see if I can, I don't want to lose internet connection, but can everybody kind of see what's going on? Sitting up here on the upper level of our tennis pavilion. I think we're going to show a quick little video, and then I'll kind of jump into it a little bit. So if we can cue up that video, that'd be great.
Sure. As I'm queuing up the video, the sound may come a little loud. So if you have earphones in, you may want to adjust the volume on your computer. And here we go.
Yeah, so that was a video that we used all the way up into March. And when we learned, I think we all sort of was following golf going into what we call the fifth major, which is the Players Championship in Florida. And the PGA Tour in March elected to cancel that event, after the first round. I think that's probably the first time we started really the COVID-19 sort of got our attention a little bit. And then unfortunately the next four events up to the Masters was canceled. And then the Masters, it's held in Augusta, the premier event in golf, not only on the PGA Tour, but globally. They moved to the fall. And then the next four events, our friends in San Antonio, Austin, Byron Nelson, and then the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte, they then got canceled and moved to the player, or not the PGA Championship, moved to the fall. It was in San Francisco. So we were the next event up. We were the next one sort of either to be canceled or go. And we received a call probably in early April from the tour and said, okay, we're going to throw a little bit of a curveball. Instead of going your Memorial Day weekend traditional date, would you look at going in June? Be the first event back. And I think, like we have with other historical opportunities with our golf tournament, 2003, Annika played, 1941, which I was not around in 1941. We hosted the Men's US Open. We hosted the 1991 Women's Open. I think we raised our hand and said, yep, if there's going to be an opportunity to be back and golf be the leader at that time, we want to do it. We raised our hand, and some of you in the room, I think there's 100 and however many people in today. I want to give a shout out to Jim Leto and Elliot Garsick and our chairman Rob Hood. They have kind of led us through this, and we raised our hand and we said, yep, we'll go in June. Golf course will be perfect. And then it just sort of, I use the word a road. I don't mean it, but it was stagger step from, okay, we could do 25,000 spectators here. We could have really a wonderful event. And I think probably as we all understood what was unraveling around us, we all realized that we couldn't have fans. And in the state and national and local kind of took their stance between sort of April and now. And so as we kind of got down the road heading towards June, we canceled our pro-ams. We discontinued our hospitality program, which may have affected some of you in the room on the call today. We refunded all of our ticket buyers. Typically we have 1,600 volunteers, and we went down to 300. And then we unfortunately made the last sort of call, and really it was the right call to not have members be a part, as painful as that is for all of those categories not to be a part. So our focus then became player safety. The people that would remain on the ground, Charles Schwab and their limited staff, 144 players, 144 caddies, PGA Tour officials, ShotLink officials, 300 volunteers. And so we then quickly shifted to how do you make a safe environment in the city and local through Betsy's office and Dennis Shingleton. We worked very closely with the tour. We've secured testing, so players will be tested before they arrive to Fort Worth. And in fact, they'll be tested prior to getting on an airplane or driving here, just so we know that they're safe and sound before they get here. And then on Saturday through Wednesday, we'll test. Players have the option to stay in the 4 hotels that we're suggesting they stay in. If they want to stay in a private house, they can. If guys like Ryan Palmer, J.J. Henry, Franklin Corporate, if they want to stay at home, they can. And so they'll be tested at Dickies. And then once we know it's negative, then they'll be given a credential that allows them to have free access. And then each day that they come, and myself included, I'll have a wristband on, and I'll be thermal tested, and people kind of inside the bubble. So we have 2 categories: inside the bubble, outside the bubble. So everybody inside the bubble will be tested in advance. Everybody outside the bubble will be thermal tested. And we feel we've got a good parking plan in place. We feel we have a good culinary plan in place that's more of a grab and go than your traditional buffet style. We're really going to limit the touch points between our committees and players. You know, typically have 52 committees. We cut that in half to really the essential elements that are involved in operating the golf tournament. And it's really been, you know, the word scary. I think when that press release went out that we were the first event to be back in golf, I think it was like, oh man, oh shoot. I might have used a couple different words. That was when it was out there in the world, and I think we rallied. We were relishing in the opportunity to be first back, and it's one of those things that we're not taking lightly, and we're leaving no stone unturned. And that video was really just to tell the story of what we've been working hard on up until April. And now all of that is, in essence, delayed till 2021. We still are really not sure what 2021 will look like, but no fans, no spectators is really going to be difficult. So we're encouraging everybody that does social media, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Tell us what you're doing at home as you're watching the Golf Channel Thursday, Friday, or CBS Saturday and Sunday. Tell us what you're doing. How are you watching it? Are you watching it at home? Are you watching it in the man cave? Are you watching it with your friends and your family? Are you watching it outdoor in your patio? Or are you going to a bar and a restaurant here in Fort Worth? So it's a paradigm shift of us telling people out there what they're missing. Now I want you to tell me what I'm missing out there. That's sort of the broad brush of what's happening here. It's been a lot of late nights, and it's been a lot of partnership with Mayor Betsy Price's office. Keith Aukenbright at UT Southwestern has been working very, very closely with Dr. Hospital, who's the PGA Tour doctor. And it's just, again, we're leaving no stone unturned. And we've gone from talking about Pro-Am draw parties and Executive Women's Day and Bill Murray playing in our Pro-Am and all of those great things that we've all enjoyed during, you know, first generation, second generation, in my case, 12 years at Colonial, to now sort of PPEs and hand sanitizer and touch points and Clorox disinfectant wipes and masks. Betsy Price's daughter has made a bunch of masks for us that we'll be using. So it's been educational. It's been an honor to be the first event back, and we're not taking it lightly, and we're leaving no stone unturned. So if it's okay for whomever is controlling the questions, I'd rather field questions, because I'm sure there's a few. And I'd rather address those questions and sort of, continue on, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hi, Michael. This is Wesley. I'll be reading some of the questions that are coming in the
Okay,
chat box, and we'll keep seeing those come in, I'm sure.
Yeah,
The first
sure.
question we had came from President Rachel Marker, and she's asking how you anticipate that this year's impact on the charity portion of what y'all do is going to compare to prior years, if there's going to be a difference.
Good question. Great question. We help generate about $14 million for local charities, and that platform is mostly linked to what we call the Birdies for Charity programs. So we have 33 Birdies for Charity charities that during a time frame before and after the golf tournament, they go out and seek pledges or have capital campaigns. And then we have a match fund that a number of contributors here in the community support. I think that was one of the things that we were most worried about, was how do we keep that match fund, and how do we keep our charities who are doing amazing work, how do we keep them whole? And so with the help of Charles Schwab and the PGA Tour, we're launching what's called Rise to the Challenge. And so we've tasked all 144 players in our field to sign something. Steve Stricker, who is the Ryder Cup captain, and Padraig Harrington have signed a Ryder Cup bag. Bryson DeChambeau, who is an SMU grad, lives in Dallas, signed his signature caps. JJ Henry, John Sinden, John Rahm, the list goes on and on. So we're collecting these items, and you'll see during the telecast a set of commercials that challenges you to go online, visit our online platform, make a donation, and that gets you tickets into raffle items. And so all these player items, caddy bibs, tee markers, rounds of golf, clubs, will all be available. And so you'll make a contribution, you'll get some raffle tickets, and hopefully your name will be pulled, and then you'll have a signed item. So we're hoping that our traditional match fund number might actually grow from that program. So, but we're not naive and we're not tone deaf to the fact that those 33 charities are also having a tough time with their charitable programs and their support, and in some cases their programs have expanded. So we're hopeful through Rise to the Challenge and everybody globally. I mean, this is available to 225 countries. So people in Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, Ireland, England, Germany, they can all be a part of this. And so we're hopeful that that number grows and that helps us maintain that $14 million for charitable generation.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So we had another question right after that, kind of talking about the broader impact of this. Comes from Carlo, and he's asking, what is the economic impact, and will we see an increase in media exposure due to the unique nature of this tournament?
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits to what we're seeing. So there's two parts there. You know, economic impact to me is people that are converging to the city, coming to the golf tournament and spending dollars in restaurants and retail and hotels. And so that will be down. I think there's just no denying the fact that our traditional 100,000 spectators that we see, there's a good portion of that come from out of town and they stay in our wonderful hotels downtown and they eat in our great restaurants. And really, quite frankly, when I started in 2008, we did an economic impact study. And, you know, we did not have the hotels, and Sundance Square hadn't been redefined, and West 7th and then Edward Ranch. So it's probably time for us to do an economic impact study. So it's unfortunate that those travelers that would typically come in for the golf tournament aren't available to us. The flip side to that is you can't, so I do what's called Google Alerts. And if anybody's familiar with what Google Alerts is, I put buzzwords in there, and I put Colonial Country Club, Fort Worth, Charles Schwab Challenge, or any combination of that. And my Google Alerts have never been higher. Even when we went through the transition out of Dina DeLuca into Fort Worth Invitational, which was really exciting in our history as well, I have a gazillion Google Alerts. So we're having a company called Joyce Julius do a study for us. E4 is Charles Schwab's agency. They're doing a study for us. So that's going to continue to be evaluated. But I got to tell you that typically our ratings, when our leaderboard is good, we're sort of in a 0.7 all the way up to 1.2. Industry insiders tell me that we could be 3 to 4. And that's eyeballs on Fort Worth. That's eyeballs on Colonial Country Club. That's eyeballs on Schwab. So I think, albeit a drum back version from a spectator perspective, the opportunity for Fort Worth, and we partnered with Visit Fort Worth and Bob Jameson's group, is really is going to be amazing. And Fort Worth is going to be profiled, and Colonial Country Club is going to be profiled. And you know, in true fashion, Lance Barrow and CBS do a nice job of profiling our assets that we have around the community. So I think the uptick from that is going to be very, very large, and the ratings are going to be off the charts, really high for us. And if we have the nice leaderboard that I'm hoping and keeping my fingers crossed for, then we could have a lot of people tune in to Golf Channel Thursday, Friday, and Golf Channel, and then CBS on Saturday and Sunday, which just means the city's being profiled and golf's being profiled and getting back to normal life's being sort of identified. So
that's great to hear. So Jim Parr has a question about other tournaments around the country. Are they looking to y'all as kind of a model, or have you had anyone reach out to you with questions about how you're approaching all this?
Yeah, so the next 4 events, the RBC Heritage in Hilton Head Island follows us. And then the Travelers Insurance Open in Connecticut, Cromwell, Connecticut, is the second event after us. And then the last event in the 4 that's been officially announced with no fans is the Rocket Mortgage Championship in Detroit, which is a fairly new event. So there, my counterparts there, we kind of, there's an email string of 100 questions that we're all asking because we want to make sure that we're getting the same information that they are from the tour. So yeah, we're bouncing a lot of ideas off of us. You may have seen, if you're following golf, you may have just seen that the John Deere Classic in Illinois has just announced cancellation. They're dealing with some different things up in that state than we are. And so I suspect, and I don't know this, but I have to believe that the tour is really taking a hard look at all of this and whether fans will be a part of any of the golf moving forward all the way up to Tour Championship is really to be determined. But yeah, we'll have representatives from 10 or 15 other PGA Tour events that will apply for credentials, and if the PGA Tour approves those credentials, we could see some of those events on site. It's not going to be anything miraculous that you're going to see. You're going to see some magnetometers, you're going to see thermal testing, you're going to see hand sanitizer and wipes all over this place. It's not going to be the infrastructure that you would have seen in that video. And so I think people, when they think about it, might be underwhelmed when they get here. But again, it's just kind of going to be a normal day at Colonial Country Club. We have 144 golfers out there playing right now, and that's kind of what it's going to be like with a few more volunteers and a few more carts and a few more TV cameras. But to answer the question, yeah, we want to set the bar for the other 3 events after us to evaluate and maybe do a better job in some of those categories. But we've set the bar high, and again, Jim Lito and Elliot Garsick, our chairman, Rob Hood, have really sunk their teeth into this. And as you all know, this is a membership-based event. Most events on the PGA Tour are managed by a 501c3 or a management company. I work on behalf of the members, and they have goals and objectives, and it's my role as tournament director and our staff to make sure that we're doing what the members want to do. And again, Jim and Rob and Elliot have done a nice job kind of navigating us through this. And there's going to be a lot of talk about us after the event, which again is going to be really, really exciting for the community.
So with regards to that, talk about us, we did have a question. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, so I think I just lost my place. Regarding some of the kind of locations and sites in Fort Worth that may be featured as there's an increase in the media attention here, and you mentioned you were working with Visit Fort Worth. Is there a plan to kind of shine a light specifically on parts of Fort Worth, kind of in conjunction with this?
Yeah, again, I think, it's, some of you may know this, but Lance Barrow, who's been with CBS Sports since I was born in 71, he might have been, shortly thereafter, he started with CBS. So he is proud of this community. He's a Colleyville resident. His father was a dairy farmer in Colleyville, and any opportunity he has to talk about some of the assets we have in Fort Worth, he does that. And traditionally it's been the museums and the zoo, but I think there's some nice human interest stories that CBS has the opportunity to tell. And what the United Way is doing, Leah King and her group, what the Tarrant County or the Tarrant Area Food Bank is doing, and Julie Butner and her group is amazing. Troy and Leo, what they're doing up at Whiskey Ranch with shifting from TX and their bourbon to hand sanitizer is a nice little tie-in too. And I think it kind of falls in line with what we've seen with the governor and his announcements over the last 10 days, is that Texas is bullish about opening up. And more recently, as of yesterday or earlier today, that 25% of I think outdoor sporting events can start to look at the option of bringing fans in. From where we sit as it relates to that, we're just not going to open that door. We're too far down the road on it. but that does allow other events to begin to look at that. And I honestly could not imagine having fans on the ground, given everything we've gone through, just to keep the people, the less than 1,000 people on the ground with us daily, safe. So, but to get back to the original question, Visit Fort Worth has remained a partner of our event in 2020, thanks to Bob Jameson and Mitch Whitten, John Seikel, and the group. So we're going to do everything we can to dangle those things out in front of CBS. And Lance doesn't need much pushing. He's really a proud Fort Worthian, as some of you may know. And he's going through some protocols himself with CBS. Though they work at a very, very tight quarters with the truck. So, CBS probably has some measures that they're putting in place, but you'll see some of those things hopefully talked about during the telecast on Saturday and Sunday.
Great. I think we have time for just one more question. And we actually had two questions about referring to attendance. One was with the decrease in attendance and the revenue from ticket sales, the questioner was curious as to how the prize money is being funded, what the source of that is. And then probably more importantly, we have someone asking if there will be people holding signs that say "quiet, please" on the course.
Funny. Those are two good questions, two very different questions. So I'll talk about the purse. The purse is funded partially by the PGA Tour and then partially by Charles Schwab. So we're fortunate that will remain intact, and I feel good about the opportunity of getting back to sport with that purse remaining intact. So you won't see any changes there. I think guys are excited to get back to playing golf. They've been off for 9 weeks, and we expanded our field from 120 players to 144 players. So more guys have that opportunity to get a little bite of the apple. But as far as it relates to Colonial and us, the tour and then Charles Schwab, in essence, for the most part, handle the purse. We will have the quiet. There might be a quiet y'all sign kind of work its way into the mix. Tom Hoagie, who is a young guy who played at TCU, he's really had a nice career this year until we sort of put everything on hold. He came up to the office yesterday. We social distanced, of course, and he's like, I'm collecting these quiet signs. So I dusted one off and gave him a quiet y'all sign. So and Zeta, I've got a quiet y'all sign for you. Yeah, for sure, 100%. There's not going to be much to quiet down, unfortunately. But that's the interesting thing is you name the player that you are cheering for or excited about, and he could hit a great drive or a great iron shot here into 10, make a nice birdie putt. But we're not going to hear the fanfare and sort of the galleries that you would hear from our spectators and fans, in 13, 14, and 15. But it'll be okay. I want you guys to jump out of your chairs at home and share those moments with us as you're enjoying the golf tournament from wherever that might be.
Awesome. And I'll go ahead and turn it back to President Rachel so we can conclude this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. And Michael, thank you so much for being here with us today. As you may know, it is a tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to donate a book to the Fort Worth Public Library in honor of your program here today, and a bookplate with your name on it will be placed in that book. So thank you so much for being with us here today. We will send that off to you so you can proudly display that in your office. Thank you again for being here. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. And now for some closing announcements. Last week we had a poll for our members when we had approximately 160 people online. We took all of your comments from the poll and also from the chat room. We also consulted with some of our community members and folks who know a lot as to what's happening with COVID. And we took all of that information, and just know that your board of directors spent quite a bit of time discussing and talking about what does that look like for us to return back to in-person meetings, wanting to make sure that your health is, of course, first and foremost. So we are proud to announce that at this point, again, keeping in mind as to what's going to be happening and wanting to be conscious of all of those reports that are coming out. But right now we are looking at ending our 2019-2020 year on June 20th with an in-person program. That will be the passing of the gavel. We will also be also having a virtual meeting as well. So it will still be on this platform. We will have dual platforms. Know that social distancing will be taking place as it relates to our relationship with the Fort Worth Club. We will be having our tables in the appropriate manner spread out. We'll also be taking into consideration all of the guidelines that the Fort Worth Club has in place, and they have gone over and above, assuring us that they will be following all the proper protocols, especially when it comes to those elevators. So we will keep you posted. If there is a change in that due to an increase in numbers, we will definitely be making that announcement. But right now, that is June 26th will be our last in-person, or our next in-person program. So we look forward to seeing those who feel comfortable with being there. If not, we look forward to seeing you on Zoom as well, and we will continue to have Zoom programs moving forward from this point on. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to drop those into the chat box, and we will once again be taking a look at those, what your thoughts are. So thank you for last week's poll. Next up, you may have noted in your email that our 2019-2020, our July through December 20th invoices for our semi-annual dues were sent out. So please take a look at your email for those due statements. There's also that opportunity. We have a little bit of a glitch that we're working on to be able to donate to the endowments. So that we are asking folks, if you're able to, it's appreciated, it's not required, to donate $100 to one of those three funds that are on your invoice. We're not able to link that right now, so if you are wanting to do that, you would have to go back in and click on that link, or of course, check in with the Rotary office, and Aurora can help you with that. We have had questions already with regards to our invoicing, and please stay tuned. We are putting together a series of videos to answer your questions as it relates to some of those questions you have regarding invoicing and our change that we had last year, a year ago, with regards to our dues structure. So please stay tuned for that. And we are anticipating having also a member-only conversation if any of those questions were not answered during those videos. We want to make sure that you feel that you're being heard. So stay tuned for that as well. And lastly, as you know, it is the goal for us to sell at least one sponsorship during our virtual meetings as well. So please consider that sponsorship. We've had over 120 people here today. We'll be having those in-person programs as well. If you're interested, please be sure and contact Tran Chon or the Rotary office to look at how you too can participate in a sponsorship program. There are no committee meetings for today. Next week's Rotary program, Friday, June 5th, will be guest speakers Laura Hallman of Canty Hanger and Hannah Parks of Kelly Hart and Holman on a very timely topic, the legal implications of businesses reopening during a pandemic. So be sure and stay tuned for that program next week. I want to thank everyone for attending today's virtual program. We know that there are a lot of folks who do check in on our fellow Rotarians, friends, and colleagues. We know that social distancing does not mean emotional distancing, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Again, thank you all for being here. Special thanks to our virtual programs task force. If you're interested in becoming a member, as you can see, we are still having members being voted in. We have a great year ahead of us. President-elect Carlo is ready to rock and roll. And so lastly, it is 1:01. So with no further ado, we have a cheers, ciao, and hasta luego. This meeting is adjourned.